Capricorn, take a slow breath with me. If you found this message right now, it's not random, because lately you've been feeling it. Something shifting, something quietly lining up. And you kept asking yourself, am I imagining this? No, you're not. In the next 2 to 3 days, a waiting period ends. A decision locks in. Something that's been hanging in the air finally settles into place. Before we go any further, if your body feels calm hearing this, type "I receive" in the comments. Because what's opening for you now isn't loud, but it's powerful. And this is just the beginning of a much bigger shift. Capricorn, stay with me for a moment. I want you to imagine we're not on a platform right now. It's just you and me, late evening, the world finally quiet. There's been something resting in the back of your awareness, not loud, not dramatic, just present. A feeling that something is moving, not rushing, but aligning. You didn't talk about it much, because you're not the type to speak before things are real. You don't celebrate early. You don't lean on hope alone. You need substance. You need proof. And yet, even with all that discipline, there were moments you paused. Moments when you asked yourself quietly, am I reading this right? Or am I just tired of waiting? That question didn't come from weakness. It came from responsibility. You've carried weight for a long time, not just your own, but expectations, timelines, promises you made without saying them out loud. You don't panic under pressure, but pressure leaves a mark, and lately, it's been sitting in your chest, not fear, more like anticipation mixed with restraint, because part of you already knows. Something has been shifting behind the scenes, not in a flashy way, but in the way foundations adjust before a structure locks into place. This isn't about sudden luck, or miracles that fall from the sky. This is about momentum that's been earned quietly. Decisions made when no one was watching. Standards you held even when it would have been easier to compromise. That's why this moment feels different. There's a calm underneath it, a steadiness. Almost like the exhale you take when you realize you don't have to hold everything up alone anymore. And if you listen closely to your body right now, you might notice it. The shoulders dropping just a little, the jaw softening, that subtle sense of something finally finding its place. You didn't imagine that. You felt it because it's real. And here's the part I want you to sit with. The reason this feels quiet is because it's solid. This isn't chaos turning into clarity. It's clarity arriving because the work is done. You're not stepping into something uncertain. You're stepping into something confirmed. And as this settles, there's a different kind of strength returning. Not the kind that pushes, but the kind that knows it. Doesn't need to. You've reached a point where effort turns into direction, where waiting turns into knowing, and without any announcement, without any dramatic shift, you find yourself standing on firmer ground. So, just stay here for a breath longer, because what you're about to recognize isn't just about what's locking in, it's about who you've become on the way there. Capricorn, there's something about the next few days that feels different in your body. Not anxious, not rushed, just precise. It's the kind of feeling you get when you know the last piece is finally sliding into place. You might not have words for it yet, but you can feel it in how your thoughts slow down, how your breathing evens out. Because what's coming doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with certainty. In the space of 2 or 3 days, something that's been suspended finds its landing, not because you forced it, not because you chased it, but because the timing finally agrees with the effort. This is how Capricorn moments work. No fireworks, no dramatic announcement. Just a quiet confirmation that tells your nervous system you can stop bracing. You may notice it through something simple, a message that sounds final, a conversation that suddenly feels resolved, a decision that no longer needs revisiting, the kind where you read it once and don't feel the urge to overthink it again. That's when you know. The waiting state dissolves, and what replaces it isn't excitement, it's stability. For someone like you, that's far more powerful. You've lived long enough to know that clarity is the real luxury. When everything was up in the air, you stayed composed. But it cost you energy. You held things together internally, kept moving forward externally, even when part of you was tired of carrying the unknown. So, when this locks in, you won't celebrate right away. You'll sit with it, let it settle, almost like you're testing the ground with your foot first before shifting your full weight. That pause isn't hesitation, it's wisdom. Because you understand something most people miss. Real progress doesn't announce itself. It stabilizes you from the inside out. And once that happens, your focus changes. You stop circling the same questions, you stop replaying scenarios. Your mind becomes available for what's actually next. And this is where the quiet strength returns. Not the kind that pushes through resistance, but the kind that moves because there is no resistance left. You may catch yourself thinking, almost without emotion, "Okay, now I can move." That sentence alone holds so much power because it means the foundation is set. And when a Capricorn has solid ground, everything else follows naturally. Plans begin to organize themselves. Ideas feel practical again. Your energy becomes intentional instead of guarded. Nothing flashy, just effective. So, stay with this moment. Let the stillness speak to you, because what's forming here is not just an outcome. It's a shift in how you carry yourself forward. And without realizing it, you're already stepping into a rhythm that feels calmer, stronger, and unmistakably yours. Capricorn, there's something I want to acknowledge here, something most people never see about you. You carry weight quietly, not because you have to, but because you've trained yourself to. Over time, responsibility didn't feel like a choice anymore. It became part of how you move through the world. You learned early that things fall apart when no one holds them together. So you did. You showed up, you stayed steady. You handled what others avoided, and you did it without asking for recognition. Lately though, that strength has felt heavier than usual, not overwhelming, just constant. A low hum in the background of your days. Because the pressure you've been under isn't about one moment, it's about the meaning attached to it. You're not just hoping something works out, you're holding the consequences if it doesn't. And that's a very different kind of weight. You didn't talk about it much, you didn't want to sound unsure. But in the quiet moments when everything slowed down, you asked yourself the question that only comes when something truly matters. What if this time it doesn't come through? Not from fear, from realism. You've lived long enough to know that effort doesn't always guarantee timing, and still, you kept going. You kept doing things the right way, even when shortcuts tempted you, even when fatigue made you wonder if anyone noticed how much you were carrying. That kind of pressure changes a person. It sharpens you, but it can also make you hold your breath. You might not have realized it, but you've been bracing, holding tension in places you normally don't even feel. Because when something is important to you, you don't half-step. You commit fully. And commitment, real commitment, always comes with risk. The risk of disappointment. The risk of having to start over. The risk of realizing you gave your best and still had to wait. That's not weakness. That's courage most people never have to face. And if no one has said this to you lately, let me say it now. The weight you've been carrying is proportional to the value of what you're building. You wouldn't feel this pressure if what's ahead wasn't meaningful. And the fact that you stayed grounded through it says more about your strength than any outcome ever could. So, if you felt tired without knowing why, if you felt quieter than usual, if you felt that subtle heaviness even on days that looked fine from the outside, that's not you losing momentum. That's you nearing resolution. There's a moment before release when the body holds on just a second longer, not out of fear, out of instinct. And right now, you're right there. At the edge of letting go. Not because you're giving up, but because you don't have to carry this alone anymore. Stay with that feeling, because the same weight that tested you is also the reason what's arriving now will actually last. You know what I need you to hear right now, Capricorn? This is not luck. This is not the universe flipping a coin and landing on your name. What is about to lock in, it has fingerprints on it. Your fingerprints. Because you have been building this quietly, carefully. The way you always do, while other people talk about manifestation. You make plans, you check the numbers, you keep going even when the excitement fades, even when the room gets cold, even when nobody claps. And that is why this outcome is different. It is earned. It is the kind of result that shows up, not because you wished harder, but because you stayed consistent when it would have been easier to disappear. You prepared in ways no one saw. You thought ahead. You took the long road. You made the boring choice, the responsible choice, the choice that protects your future self. And I know you have questioned it late at night. In that quiet space where you do not perform strength for anyone, you have wondered, was I too strict? Was I too cautious? Did I miss the moment? Did I hold back too much? But listen, that caution was not fear. It was wisdom. It was survival. It was self-respect. Capricorn, You did not get here by accident. You did not get here because someone felt sorry for you. You got here because you kept your word, even when it cost you, even when it took longer than it should have, even when you had to carry more than what was fair. And the universe recognizes that kind of integrity. Not with noise, not with fireworks, but with something even better. A clean confirmation, a solid yes. A door that closes behind you so you can finally stop looking over your shoulder. This is not a random reward. This is a return. A return on discipline, a return on patience, a return on every time you chose to do it right instead of doing it fast. And when it lands, you are going to feel it in your body first, that release, that quiet exhale, like your shoulders drop without you telling them to. Because your nervous system has been holding this open loop for a long time, and it is about to finally close. So, let me ask you something. What have you been protecting all this time, if not your future? What have you been carrying? If not the blueprint of a better life, you are not behind, you are not late. You are right on time for the version of you that does not have to beg for stability anymore. The version of you that moves with certainty, because the foundation is finally set. And now, with that foundation under you, you will see how fast things can move when you are not forcing them, when you are not fighting them, when you are simply standing in what you already built. Just take a breath with me. Let it be real. Let it be yours. Because once this locks in, you are going to understand something that changes everything. It was never about proving you were worthy. It was about removing what kept interrupting your path, so your power could finally move in a straight line. Capricorn, when the confirmation arrives, it may not look dramatic from the outside. No sudden noise, no big announcement. But inside you, something changes immediately. The pressure you have been carrying does not slowly fade. It drops, almost all at once. You feel it first in your body. The breath you did not realize you were holding finally releases. Your shoulders soften, your jaw loosens. Your chest feels quieter. This is not excitement. This is relief. And relief, for someone like you, is sacred. Because you have been strong for so long that you forgot what it feels like to not be on alert. When the waiting ends, your mind stops scanning for problems. You are not rehearsing conversations anymore. You are not replaying scenarios. You are not calculating what could go wrong. The noise settles. And in that stillness, a very clear thought rises. I made it through the hardest part. Not in a victorious way. Not in a dramatic way. In a grounded way. The kind that feels true. You do not celebrate loudly because your victory is internal. It lives in the knowing that you held yourself together when it mattered most, that you did not break when the weight was heavy, that you did not rush just to escape discomfort. You stayed present, you stayed responsible, you stayed aligned with your values, and now your nervous system understands that it can rest, that it does not have to protect you from uncertainty anymore. This is where calm returns, not the calm of giving up, but the calm of arrival. You may notice that your thoughts become simpler. You are not trying to prove anything. You are not trying to justify your choices. You just know that the hardest stretch is behind you. And that knowing changes how you move. You walk slower. You speak more deliberately. You listen more carefully. Because when you are no longer under pressure, you do not need to rush. There is a quiet dignity that settles around you now. A sense of self-trust that does not ask for validation. You understand something important in this moment. The struggle was never meant to define you. It was meant to refine you. And once it passes, you do not cling to it. You let it go. You allow yourself to feel proud without being loud, to feel strong without being tense. This is the moment where your inner world finally matches the stability you have been working toward. And as that alignment settles, a new rhythm begins to form. It feels natural, unforced, almost effortless. You do not need to name it yet. Just notice how it feels to exist without carrying the outcome on your back. Let that sensation move through you. Because from this steadiness, everything else you build will come from a place of clarity instead of survival. And without any announcement, without any sharp turn, you find yourself standing in a version of life that feels lighter, quieter, and finally sustainable. Stay with that feeling for a moment, because what opens from here does not ask you to struggle again. It asks you to move forward with trust and with ease. Capricorn, once that inner weight lifts, something practical begins to happen around you. Not suddenly, not chaotically, but in a way that feels familiar to you. Things start to move because they finally make sense to move. You may notice it first in your thinking. Plans that felt heavy before now feel workable. Ideas you kept on hold no longer feel risky. They feel timed. There is a difference. When you were under pressure, every decision carried too much weight. You questioned timing. You questioned resources. You questioned yourself. But now, clarity replaces caution, and clarity is your strongest asset. This is where the flow begins, not as a rush of money, not as instant success stories, but as visibility. You start to see where things fit, what deserves energy, what no longer does. And because you are Capricorn, you do not scatter your focus. You organize it. One plan begins to move, then another. A conversation opens a door. A message brings confirmation. A delayed response suddenly arrives with the right tone. Nothing feels forced, and that is how you know this is real momentum. You are not chasing opportunities. They are responding to the structure you already built. This is important because you have never been someone who relies on one stream alone. You understand stability as something layered. So as this phase unfolds, you may notice that progress comes from more than one place. Not all at once, but consistently. A steady yes here, a green light there, small openings that add up to something solid. And instead of overwhelming you, this actually grounds you further, because now you are operating from security. You are not trying to prove survival. You are building sustainability. That shift changes everything. You approach work differently, with less urgency, with more authority. You do not rush conversations. You listen for alignment. You choose what fits long term. And money in this space stops feeling like pressure. It becomes a tool again, a way to support your life, your time, your peace, not something you have to wrestle with. This is when Capricorn does its best work, when stability turns into expansion, when structure allows growth. You are not meant to struggle forever. You are meant to build something that carries you forward. And now, that design is finally active. You might catch yourself thinking about the future without tension in your chest, planning without fear, imagining without immediately calculating risk. That is not recklessness. That is confidence born from experience. Because you know you can handle what comes. You always have. And now, you are doing it with more support than before. Let yourself notice this change. The way effort feels cleaner. The way decisions feel simpler. The way your energy is no longer spread thin. This is not about sudden wealth or dramatic career shifts. It is about alignment between who you are and what you are building. And as that alignment settles, your path forward begins to feel not just possible, but sustainable. Take that in. Because from this place, every step you take is backed by something real. And quietly, without any announcement, you are already moving with a steadiness that opens more doors simply because you are ready to walk through them. Capricorn, there's another realization that has been forming quietly. It didn't arrive all at once. It came together slowly. In moments you almost dismissed. A pause in a conversation. A familiar feeling in your chest. That subtle sense of resistance whenever you were about to move forward. For a long time, you thought it was just caution, or responsibility, or timing, because you always look inward first. You ask what you could do better, where you could be more patient, more precise. But somewhere along the way, you began to notice a pattern. Certain words would slow you down. Certain reactions would make you second-guess yourself. Certain presences would quietly redirect your energy. Not aggressively, not obviously. Just enough to keep you hesitating. This wasn't something harmful in a dramatic sense. It wasn't malice. It wasn't betrayal. It was influence. The kind that slips in softly. The kind that sounds reasonable. The kind that wears concern as a mask. And because you are thoughtful, because you value loyalty, you listen longer than you should have. You trusted. But trust, when it is unbalanced, can turn into a subtle form of self-abandonment. You didn't see it right away. Most people wouldn't. Because it wasn't loud enough to raise alarms. It just nudged you off center. And slowly you began to doubt instincts that had never failed you before. You questioned decisions you had already thought through. You delayed actions that once felt clear. And the most exhausting part was this. You couldn't explain why you felt stuck. That kind of confusion wears a person down. But clarity has a way of arriving when you are ready to see it. And recently, you did. Not with anger, not with blame, with calm awareness. You realized this influence only had power when you weren't fully standing in yourself. And the moment you noticed it, something shifted. You didn't need to confront. You didn't need to cut anyone off. You simply adjusted your inner posture. You started listening to your own timing again, your own judgment, your own quiet authority. And that changed everything. Because now, even if they are still near, their words no longer land the same. They pass through without settling. You hear them, but you do not absorb them. That is growth, not distancing, not resentment, discernment. You are not meant to isolate yourself to be strong. You are meant to stay connected without surrendering your direction. And that is exactly what you are doing now. There is a steadiness in you that cannot be swayed easily anymore. You move from internal alignment instead of external reassurance. That is a powerful place to stand, because when your decisions come from within, no one else can reroute your path. You may still care, you may still listen, but the steering wheel is back in your hands, and you feel it. In the way you respond instead of react. In the way you pause before changing course. You no longer explain yourself unnecessarily. You no longer justify your instincts. You trust the version of you that earned this clarity. And as this awareness settles, something else becomes clear. Your movement forward no longer needs permission. It flows naturally because nothing is quietly pulling you backward. There is a sense of quiet liberation here, not freedom from people, freedom from interference, freedom to move in the direction you already know is right. Stay with that feeling, because this regained clarity is not just protecting your path, it is preparing you to step into a level of self-trust that makes everything ahead feel cleaner, simpler, and unmistakably aligned. Capricorn, let's slow this down together, because what you are stepping into now is not a peak moment. It is a settling, a quiet arrival into a place you've been building toward without ever announcing it. There is a kind of power that no longer needs momentum to prove itself. It doesn't rush, it doesn't explain, it doesn't look over its shoulder, it simply stands. That is where you are now. You may notice it in how little you feel the need to justify your choices, in how your voice feels steadier without being louder, in how you no longer feel the urge to move just to show progress. Because progress is no longer something you have to demonstrate, it's something you inhabit. This is what stability of power feels like. Not dominance, not control over others, but control over your own direction. You are not being tested anymore. You are being trusted by life, by timing, by yourself. And that trust didn't arrive overnight. It was earned through restraint, through consistency, through choosing alignment over urgency. You didn't rush your becoming. You allowed it to form. That's why this phase feels calm. There is no scramble here, no chasing, just a deep sense that what you've been preparing for is finally ready to support you back. You don't need to prove your worth to any room you walk into now. You already know who you are and what you bring, and when someone recognizes it, you appreciate it. But when they don't, you are not shaken. That is power that is stabilized. You are standing in a place where your presence does the speaking, where your decisions land clean because they are no longer reactive, where your timing feels natural because it is no longer driven by fear or comparison. You move when it is right, and you wait when it is wise. Both come from the same center now. You may notice that people respond differently to you, not because you changed your tone, but because you changed your relationship to yourself. There is a calm authority in that, the kind that invites respect without demanding it. And as this settles, you don't feel the need to speed up. You trust the pace. You trust that what belongs to you does not need to be chased. It arrives when you are ready to receive it without shrinking or overextending. That is the alignment you are in. Everything in your life is finding its proper place around the version of you that no longer negotiates their own foundation. You are not waiting anymore. You are positioned, and that distinction changes everything. In the quiet moments, you may sense it, that subtle feeling of rightness, like standing on solid ground after walking uphill for a long time. You are not exhausted now. You are anchored, and from here, every step forward is supported by clarity instead of effort alone. So, let yourself be here. Let the stillness hold you, because within this calm is a strength that lasts. And as the final details fall into place, you will recognize the truth you've known all along. Nothing was delayed, nothing was wasted. Everything aligned to bring you exactly here. And in the next 2 to 3 days, that alignment completes itself. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a certainty that feels undeniable. Everything finally locks in. And you move forward not chasing power, but carrying it with ease. Capricorn, before we close this space tonight, take one more breath with me. Notice how you feel now compared to when you first pressed play. Quieter, more settled, more certain. That's not by accident. This message didn't come to convince you of anything. It came to remind you of what you already knew, but maybe hadn't slowed down enough to trust. You're not standing at the edge anymore. You're standing on solid ground. And sometimes the biggest surprise is realizing you're no longer waiting. You're ready. If this message found you at the right moment, if something in your chest softened, or your thoughts finally slowed, take a second and type, "I receive" in the comments. Not for me, for you. It's a way of marking this moment, of saying I trust my timing, I trust my path. And if you're part of this Capricorn community, if these late-night messages feel like home to you, make sure you're subscribed. Because this journey isn't ending here. What locks in now creates space for the next layer to arrive, the next insight, the next alignment. Another message is already forming, and when it comes, it will meet you exactly where you are. Until then, walk gently with yourself, move with intention, and remember, you don't have to chase what's meant for you. You're already carrying the power you once thought you had to earn. We'll meet again soon. Same frequency, same calm. The journey continues.